"Don't drink that," the waitress whispered, her fingers digging into my wrist like a warning. My son Mike just smiled across the table, waiting for me to die. He thought he'd already stolen my company, my life's work. But tonight I was about to teach him the true cost of betrayal. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. Let me back up and tell you how a birthday dinner turned into a war zone. The restaurant was called The Summit. Expensive. Exclusive. The kind of place where the lights are low, the prices are high, and the view stretches forever. It was my 60th birthday. 60 years I built Miller Construction from nothing, a borrowed toolbox, sweat, and a promise to my wife Mary. Now, it was the biggest firm in the state. I looked across the table. My son Mike. His suit was perfect. His teeth were too white. He had Mary's charm, but the warmth was gone, replaced by something cold, something hungry. Next to him sat Jessica, his wife, beautiful, but sharp, like broken glass. She tapped her manicured nails on the tablecloth, already bored with my birthday. To my right sat Sarah, my daughter. She smiled, but her eyes were worried. She kept twisting the necklace I gave her. She felt the tension, too. It hummed beneath the surface, dangerous as a live wire. Tonight was supposed to be about the future. But looking at Mike, the future looked very dark. "A toast," Mike announced. He stood up, tall and confident. The room quieted. Important people were here. Investors, clients, to Dad, 60 years young, and to the future of Miller Construction. He walked around the table. He didn't just raise his glass. He placed a specific flute right in front of me. The crystal felt heavy, cold. "A special vintage, Dad," he said. "Just for you." I looked at the glass. The bubbles rose in a steady stream. I looked at Mike. He was watching me, waiting, that polished smile fixed on his face. But something felt wrong. His eyes didn't match the smile. They were hard, expectant. I raised the glass to my lips. The smell was sweet, almost too sweet. That's when it happened. A sudden movement to my left. A young waitress, carrying a tray. She stumbled. It looked like an accident. She grabbed my arm to steady herself, her fingers digging into my wrist. "I am so sorry, sir," she stammered, leaning close to dab at my sleeve. Her eyes, wide and terrified, locked onto mine. And then, so quietly I almost thought I imagined it, she whispered the words that saved my life. "Don't drink that." My heart stopped. The room seemed to tilt. I slowly lowered the glass. The champagne trembled. I couldn't breathe. "Clumsy fool," Jessica snapped. Her voice cut through the silence. She glared at the waitress. "Get her out of here." The waitress apologized again, and rushed toward the kitchen. Mike's jaw tightened. His smile finally cracked. "Well," he said, his voice tight. That ruined the moment. "Drink up, Dad. It's very expensive." I stared at the champagne. I stared at Mike. The smile was back, but his eyes were stone cold. He wasn't asking, he was commanding. 5 minutes later, the illusion of my perfect family shattered. But the cracks had started long before that night. The trouble began 6 months ago, shortly after the anniversary of Mary's death. She had been the glue. She saw the good in Mike, even when I couldn't. Without her, the family felt dangerous, unbalanced. I walked into the office one Monday morning, early. I liked the quiet before the storm, but I wasn't the first one there. The lights in the main conference room were already on. I heard voices, Mike and Jessica. They weren't supposed to be in the office. I stopped outside the door, listening. "We need to move faster," Jessica was saying. Her voice was sharp, urgent. "He's digging his heels in. He won't budge on the stadium expansion." "I know," Mike replied, frustrated. "He's too conservative. He's afraid of the risk. Risk is where the money is." Jessica snapped. "We have to push him out. The investors won't wait forever." Push me out? My own son? I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. I had built this company. I had given him everything. And now he was plotting against me. I pushed open the door. They were hunched over the conference table, looking at financial projections. Aggressive expansion. Massive loans. High risk. Mike jumped when he saw me. He actually flinched. Jessica was smoother. She just straightened up, slow and deliberate. The silence in the room felt heavy. "What's this?" I asked. My voice was calm, too calm. "Dad, we didn't expect you," Mike stammered. "I own the company, Mike. I come and go as I please." "Of course. Jessica said, sliding a folder over the charts. Her eyes were like ice. We were just brainstorming, looking at ways to modernize. Modernize. The word sounded ugly coming from her. I knew what it really meant. Gamble, destroy, erase me. Modernization is good, I said, walking toward the table. But this looks like gambling. I reached for the folder. Mike subtly blocked my hand. We have to take risks to grow, Dad, Mike argued. His tone was condescending. The market is changing. You're too conservative. We're falling behind. It was the first open challenge to my authority. The first time he made me feel old, obsolete. We're falling behind because you're focused on flashy projects instead of the core business. I countered. The core business is dying, Mike snapped. We need to adapt, or we'll end up irrelevant. The insult stung. It was meant to. I walked out, leaving the tension thick in the air.
I knew then that this wasn't just a disagreement. It was the start of a war. A few weeks later, I had lunch with David, my oldest friend and the company lawyer. David was the cautious one, the kind of guy who wore both a belt and suspenders. We met at the diner downtown, my kind of place, strong coffee and real people. David was stirring his coffee, round and round. He hadn't taken a sip. You look tired, John, David said. Mike is pushing hard, I admitted. I rubbed my wedding ring, a nervous habit I developed after Mary passed. He wants me to retire. He wants control. David frowned. He finally stopped stirring his coffee. I know. He's been asking me questions. About the succession plan. About the bylaws. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. He wants to know if there are any loopholes. Loopholes? My blood ran cold. The diner suddenly felt freezing. Why? He and Jessica are talking to investors. Big money. A firm out of New York. Harrison Global. Harrison. The name was familiar. They were sharks. Corporate raiders. They want to take the company public. David continued. They need full control to do it. Public. I felt sick. That would destroy everything we built. The quality. The integrity. We treat our people like family, David. I warned him, David said. But he won't listen. He's blinded by the money. He paused. And Jessica, she's the one pulling the strings, John. She's the venom. He looked me straight in the eye. Be careful, John. They are desperate. And desperate people do dangerous things. I thought he meant financially. I didn't realize he meant physically. The tension at home escalated. Sunday dinners used to be my favorite time. Now they were battleground, cold food and colder silences. We need to secure the stadium contract, Mike announced one evening. He tapped his fork against his plate. Tap, tap, tap. That's a game changer. The stadium. $1 billion deal. The terms are too risky, I countered. The penalties for delays are astronomical. Mike shrugged. Casually. We can, if we cut corners. I stared at him, shocked. We don't cut corners. Our reputation is built on quality, on safety. That's the Miller promise. Quality doesn't pay the bills, Dad, Mike snapped. The anger underneath was raw. Ugly. Your old-fashioned methods are strangling us. Sarah jumped in.
She was always the peacekeeper. Mike, please. Dad, he's just trying to secure our future. Whose future? I asked. I looked straight at Jessica. She was watching the exchange with a faint smile. Enjoying the blood sport, the family's future, of course, Jessica said. Her voice was sweet as poison. She leaned forward, her eyes locking onto mine. And sometimes that means making difficult decisions, like knowing when to step aside. The threat was clear. Step aside or be pushed. I looked at my son. He didn't defend me. He didn't even meet my eyes. The betrayal stung more than any insult. I started noticing the whispers at the office, the secret meetings, the closed doors. Mike and Akage were systematically isolating me. I went to see Anna, my assistant. She had been with me for 15 years. Loyal, efficient. Her desk was empty. Where's Anna? I asked the receptionist. Mr. Miller. Mike transferred her, the receptionist said, avoiding my eyes. To the downtown office. The downtown office. The Siberia of Miller Construction. Mike hadn't just transferred her. He had banished her. He was cutting off my access to information. I called Anna. "John, I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He threatened to fire me if I talked to you." "What's going on, Anna?" "He's changing the passwords, locking you out of the system. He's moving money around. Fast." My grip tightened on the phone. He was dismantling my company, piece by piece. But that wasn't the worst part. I saw Tom, my head foreman, a man who had been with me for 30 years. I trusted him like a brother. He was leaving Mike's office one afternoon. He looked uncomfortable, ashamed. "Tom, what's going on?" I asked, stopping him in the hallway. Tom sighed. He rubbed the back of his neck, a nervous tic I knew well. "He's making promises, John. Big promises. The guys are listening. They have families to support." "He's lying to them, Tom," I said, my voice urgent. "He's risking their jobs. The stadium contract is a disaster waiting to happen." "I know," Tom said, his voice heavy, "but it's hard to ignore the numbers he's throwing around. Double overtime, bonuses." Even Tom was wavering. My oldest ally. I was losing my grip. The ground was crumbling beneath my feet. I tried to investigate the finances further. I went to the bank. I needed to see the recent loan agreements. I met with the bank manager, Miss Albright. She was new, young, ambitious, dressed in a sharp suit that reminded me of Jessica. Her office was sleek and modern. It felt sterile, cold. Miss Albright smiled. It was a practiced, bureaucratic smile. "I'm afraid that's not possible, Mr. Miller. Your son, Michael, is the primary signatory on those accounts now. I'm the CEO. I own the company." "According to our records," she said, folding her hands neatly on the desk, "Michael has power of attorney for all financial matters regarding Miller Construction." Power of attorney? I never signed that. I realized then how deep the conspiracy went. They had planned this for months. Miss Albright was in on it. They had bought everyone. The real betrayal was still waiting in the shadows. The triggering incident came a week before the birthday dinner. The final nail in the coffin. I received an email from the bank. A notification of a large wire transfer. $3 million from the company's operating account to an offshore account in the Cayman Islands. $3 million gone. My hands started shaking. This wasn't just ambition. This was theft. I stormed into Mike's office. I didn't knock. He was on the phone, laughing. He looked up when I entered. No surprise, no fear, just annoyance. He held up a finger, signaling me to wait. I waited, like a servant in my own house. He hung up the phone. "What is it, Dad?" "I'm busy." I threw the bank statement on his desk. "What is this?" $3 million. Offshore. Mike didn't even flinch. His eyes were cold. Dead. That's the mobilization fee for the stadium contract. "We haven't even signed the contract yet. And we don't pay mobilization fees offshore." "We do now," Mike said, standing up. "I renegotiated the terms. I secured the contract." "You stole from the company," I whispered. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut. My son. A thief. I invested in the company. Mike corrected me. "And frankly, Dad, it's none of your business." "What do you mean? I'm the CEO." "Not anymore," Mike said. A cruel smile spread across his face. It was a smile I didn't recognize. "We had an emergency board meeting this morning," Mike continued, enjoying the moment. "We voted to remove you, effective immediately." I stared at him, stunned. "You can't do that. I own the majority of the shares." "You did," Jessica said, stepping out of the shadows. She had been there the whole time, silent, watching. Deadly. "But we renegotiated the terms of the company loan," Jessica explained, her voice smooth as silk. "Remember, Ms. Albright? We used your shares as collateral." "Collateral? I never approved that." "The power of attorney did," Mike said. "The one you signed?" "I never signed a power of attorney." "The courts will say otherwise," Jessica said coldly. "And when you defaulted on the loan—" "I never defaulted on a loan in my life," I roared. "You did when you refused to approve the stadium contract," Mike said. "It was a breach of fiduciary duty. We had the right to protect the company's interests. It was a lie, a fabrication, forged documents. a legalized theft. They had manipulated the system, used my own company against me. The realization was devastating. I felt a crushing weight on my chest. I couldn't breathe. "I'll fight this," I said, my voice weak. "I'll expose you." "You won't," Mike said, his voice hardening. "You'll go to the birthday dinner. You'll announce your retirement. You'll endorse me as the new CEO, and you'll walk away with a generous pension. And if I refuse, then we'll destroy you," Jessica said. Her voice was cold and sharp as broken glass. "We'll tell the world you're unstable, incompetent, suffering from dementia." Dementia. They were going to erase me. My legacy. My life. "We'll tie you up in lawsuits until you have nothing left," Jessica continued. "And you'll lose everything, including Sarah." The threat against Sarah hit me harder than anything else. They had me trapped, cornered, betrayed by my own blood. I went home. The house felt empty, haunted. The silence echoed around me. I sat in my study. The walls were lined with awards. Memories of a lifetime of hard work. Now it all felt meaningless. I looked at the picture of Mary on my desk, her smiling face. "What would you do, Mary?" I whispered. Tears streamed down my face. I felt broken, defeated. I wanted to give up, to disappear. But then I looked at her eyes. I remembered her strength, her resilience. She would fight. She would protect her family, even from the ones who were trying to destroy it. I wasn't going to let them win. I had to fight back. I called David. I needed a lawyer. I needed a friend. "John, I heard what happened," David said, his voice filled with concern. "I'm so sorry I argued against the takeover, but they had the votes. And the paperwork, the forged power of attorney, looked legitimate." "They stole the company, David," I said, my voice raw. "They fabricated a default. They bribed the bank manager." "I know," David said, sighing. "It's ruthless. They used the Harrison Global connection to pressure the bank and the board. The corruption runs deep. I need your help. We have to stop them." David hesitated. "John, proving the forgery will take years. By then, the company will be gone. We have to do something." I shouted, slamming my fist on the desk. "There is one option," David said slowly. "The nuclear option. If we can prove that Mike obtained control through undeniable fraud, something bigger than the forgery, we can invalidate the takeover immediately. But we need proof that exposes the conspiracy. Something that shocks the conscience." "How do we get that?" "We need to hit them where it hurts," David said. "We need to make them crack." I knew exactly where to find it. The stadium contract. If this story is keeping you hooked, drop a like. It was that moment I started digging. I didn't sleep. I lived on coffee and rage. I started investigating the stadium contract. The centerpiece of Mike's plan. I called my old contacts, suppliers, architects, people who respected me, and I found it. The crack in the foundation. He had overpromised. He had guaranteed an impossible timeline. But that wasn't the worst part. I called Old Man Jenkins. He ran the biggest concrete supply company in the state. Grumpy, stubborn, but honest. "Jenkins, it's John Miller, John. Heard you retired," Jenkins grunted. "Not exactly. I need to ask you about the stadium contract." "The concrete Mike ordered." Jenkins was silent for a moment. "He ordered the cheap stuff, John. Grade 3. Not suitable for a structure that size. I told him it was dangerous. He didn't care. He said the budget was tight, and the engineer signed off. Grade 3 concrete. My blood ran cold. That wasn't cutting corners. That was criminal negligence. I needed an expert opinion. I called Dr. Kenji Tanaka, a structural engineer, one of the best in the business. Retired now, but his mind was still sharp. I sent him the blueprints Mike had submitted to the city. He called me back an hour later. His voice was grave. "Sean, who designed this?" he asked. "My son," I admitted, the shame burning in my throat. "He's using the grade 3 concrete Jenkins mentioned," Dr. Tanaka said. "But it's worse than that. The steel reinforcements are inadequate. He's compromised the entire structure." I felt a chill creep up my spine. "What does that mean, Kenji?" "It means the stadium is a death trap," Dr. Tanaka said, his voice blunt. The foundation is unstable. The structure won't hold the weight. If there's an earthquake, a storm, or even a full-capacity crowd, the stadium will collapse. Collapse. Thousands of people. Killed. The realization hit me like a freight train. Mike wasn't just risking the company's future. He was risking people's lives. My son, a monster. I had to stop him. If I could expose this, I could destroy the contract. I could save the company. And save lives. But I needed proof. I needed the original engineering reports. The ones that showed the structural weaknesses before Mike had them altered. I needed to get into his computer. I couldn't do it alone. I needed help from the inside. I called Sarah. We met at a small cafe across town. She was nervous. Jumpy. She kept twisting her necklace. Dad, I can't talk to you, she whispered, looking over her shoulder. Mike forbade me. He said you were unstable. I'm not the dangerous one, Sarah said, keeping my voice calm. He is. I know what he's doing, I continued. The stadium contract, the grade 3 concrete. Sarah paled. Her eyes widened with shock. Grade 3? What are you talking about? The foundation is weak. The stadium could collapse. People will die, Sarah. Sarah stared at me, horrified. No, he wouldn't do that. He's ambitious. Yes. But he's not evil. He already stole the company from me, I reminded her. He embezzled $3 million. He forged my signature. He's desperate. Tears welled in Sarah's eyes. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was this bad. You'd have to help me, Sarah, I pleaded, taking her hand. Before someone gets hurt. Sarah was torn. Loyalty to her brother clashed with the terrifying realization of its crimes. The choice was agonizing. What do you need me to do? She whispered finally. I need the engineering reports. The original ones. They are on his computer, in a hidden file. Sarah hesitated. He'll kill me if he finds out. He's changed, Dad. He's scary. He'll kill thousands of people if we don't stop him, I said. Sarah nodded slowly. Her face hardened with resolve. She looked like her mother in that moment. Strong, determined. Okay, she said. I'll do it. The next day, Sarah called me. She was breathless, terrified. I got them, she whispered. I downloaded the reports onto a USB drive. I'm emailing them to you now. A wave of relief washed over me. We had the proof. But, Dad, there's something else, Sarah said, her voice dropping even lower. I overheard Mike and Jessica talking. What did they say? They are planning something for the dinner. Something final. What kind of something? My stomach clenched. I don't know, but Mike said, he said after tonight, you wouldn't be a problem anymore. She was crying now. He sounded so cold, Dad. My blood ran cold. They weren't just trying to silence me. They were planning to kill me. I wanted to run, to hide, but I couldn't. I had to protect Sarah. I had to fight, even if it meant risking my life. I called David. David, I have the proof, I said, my voice urgent. But I think they are planning to kill me. Tonight, David's voice was sharp. John, don't go to the dinner. We can go to the police now. No, I said. The police won't act fast enough. Mike will deny everything. I have to expose them publicly. The investors will be there. Mr. Harrison will be at our table. If I can convince him, the whole deal falls apart. The dinner was the perfect trap. For them, or for me. Then we need protection, David argued. I'll hire security. No, I insisted. If they see security, they'll panic. They'll call it off. We need them to feel safe, confident. We need them to show their hand. We need them to try. John, that's insane. I know, but I have a plan. We need a witness. Someone invisible. I thought about Mary. She always protected me. And then I remembered something. A small detail from her funeral. A young woman standing in the back, crying. Her name was Lisa. Her father had been my first business partner. He ruined himself with gambling. I had cut ties with him. I had to protect the company, but Mary hadn't. She had helped him secretly. She had paid off his debts. She saved his family. She never told me. Lisa had written me a letter after the funeral, thanking me for Mary's kindness. She said if I ever needed anything, I should call her. I still had her number. I called her, my last hope. I told her everything. I need your help, Lisa, I said. My voice was rough with emotion. I need you to protect me. For Mary. Lisa didn't hesitate. I'll be there, Mr. Miller. I'll do whatever it takes. She worked as a waitress at the summit. It was a perfect cover. Fate, or maybe Mary, pulling strings from above. The plan was set. The trap was laid. But this time I was the one setting the trap. I realized I might not survive the night. I wrote a letter to Sarah, telling her how much I loved her. I gave the letter to David, along with the USB drive, just in case. The act of writing the letter felt like writing my own obituary. The day of the dinner arrived. I put on my best suit, my armor. I looked at myself in the mirror. The man staring back looked old, tired, but determined. His eyes were clear, ready. I arrived at the restaurant, the summit. The atmosphere was electric. The calm before the storm. I saw David sitting at a nearby table. He nodded slightly. Tom was there too, at the bar. My allies were in place. Mike and Jessica greeted me at the entrance. Fake smiles plastered on their faces. Dad, you look wonderful, Mike said, clapping me on the back. A little too hard. Happy birthday, John, Jessica said, kissing the air near my cheek. Her perfume smelled like death. We sat down at the table. Sarah was already there, pale, trembling. She squeezed my hand under the table. Her hand was freezing. Mr. Harrison, the lead investor, sat next to Mike. He was a smooth, sophisticated man, silver hair, expensive suit. He was assessing me. Gee, Dawn. A pleasure, Harrison said, shaking my hand. Mike tells me great things about the company's future. The future is certainly looking bright, I said, but we must never forget the foundation. The dinner dragged on, course after course of expensive food. It tasted like ash in my mouth. Mike was charming Harrison, painting a picture of a glorious future. I wanted to scream, to expose him, but I had to wait. The restraint was agonizing. I kept looking for Lisa. Where was she? Finally, it was time for the toast. The moment of truth. Mike stood up. Raising his glass, the room fell silent. To Dad, Mike announced. 60 years young, and to the future of Miller Construction. A future built on innovation, on ambition, on progress. He walked around the table. He picked up a specific flute of champagne from a tray. He placed the flute in front of me. A special vintage, Dad, just for you. I looked at the glass. I looked at Mike. His eyes were gleaming with triumph. He thought he had won. I noticed something, a faint, oily sheen on the surface of the champagne, and a subtle smell, not just sweet, but bitter. Almonds, cyanide. The realization hit me like a freight train. My own son was trying to kill me. The shock paralyzed me. I raised the glass to my lips. My hand was shaking. I looked at Mike. He was smiling, eager. I looked at Sarah. She was watching me, her eyes wide with fear. She knew. That's when Lisa appeared. Out of nowhere, she stumbled into me. She grabbed my arm, her fingers digging in. Don't drink that. I lowered the glass, slowly, deliberately. I looked straight at Mike. His face darkened with rage. The mask fell off completely, revealing the monster underneath. Drink it, Dad, he hissed. His voice was low, menacing. I looked at him. My son, the boy I had raised. My heart broke. The betrayal was complete. No, I said. My voice was clear, strong. The room fell silent. Everyone was watching us. Harrison looked confused. Concerned? What's wrong, Dad? Mike asked, trying to regain his composure. It's just champagne. Is it? I asked, looking at the glass. Or is it something else? Something final. Mike paled. His eyes darted around the room. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you do, I said. I stood up. My voice was loud. I know about the poison. Jessica gasped. He's crazy. He's delusional. Just like we warned you. She turned to Harrison. He's suffering from dementia. Am I? I turned to Harrison. My son and his wife have stolen the company from me. They forged my signature. They embezzled $3 million, and now they are trying to kill me. Chaos erupted. The investors were shouting. Harrison stood up, his face grim. Mike, what is this? Mike lunged forward, desperate. He tried to grab the glass, to destroy the evidence. I held it tightly. It's over, Mike. You ruined everything, he screamed. His face was twisted with rage. You always stood in my way. I gave you everything, I shouted back. The pain was raw. No, you built it for yourself, Mike spat. You never trusted me. He never trusted me. He pulled a small vial from his pocket, empty. He threw it on the floor. It shattered. The smell of almonds filled the air. Proof. Harrison looked horrified. You poisoned him at his own birthday dinner? It's not just the poison, Mr.
Harrison, I announced, my voice booming. It's the stadium. It's a death trap. He used grade 3 concrete. It will collapse. I pulled out the USB drive. I have the original engineering reports right here. Mike was cornered. Dangerous. He grabbed a steak knife from the table. He lunged at me.
Rage blinding him. I was trapped. I had nowhere to go. This was it. The final confrontation. But before he could reach me, Sarah stepped in front of me, shielding me with her body. Mike, stop, she screamed, tears streaming down her face. Don't do this. Mike froze, the knife inches from her chest. He looked at her, his eyes wild with rage and despair. His sister, the only person who still loved him. Get out of my way, Sarah, he hissed. No, she said, her voice trembling but firm. I won't let you hurt him anymore. I know about the stadium. The concrete, the lies, the ultimate betrayal, the shocking truth revealed. Mike looked broken, defeated. He dropped the knife. It clattered on the floor. David and Tom rushed forward, grabbing Mike, restraining him. He didn't fight back. He just sobbed, brokenly. The police arrived minutes later. Alerted by Lisa, Detective Chen, a sharp, observant woman, took charge of the scene. They arrested Mike and Jessica. Mike was crying, begging for forgiveness. Pathetic. Jessica was silent, her eyes cold and dead. Even in defeat, she showed no remorse. The fallout was devastating. The scandal rocked the city. Miller Construction was front-page news. The headlines were brutal. The poisoned patriarch. The killer couple. The stadium contract collapsed. Harrison pulled his investment. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy. We lost everything, or so it seemed. But we survived. We didn't just survive. We rebuilt. Sarah and I took over the company. We worked tirelessly to repair the damage. We exposed the fraud. We cooperated with the investigation. Detective Chen found the evidence of the embezzlement, the forged power of attorney, and the conspiracy with Miss Albright, who was also arrested. Old Man Jenkins and Dr. Tanaka provided expert testimony. The poisoned champagne was the key. It proved the intent. Mike and Jessica were found guilty. They were sentenced to 20 years. It was hard work. The hardest I've ever done, rebuilding the trust. We had to sell assets. We had to start over. But we did it together. Sarah proved to be a natural leader. Strong, compassionate, smart. She modernized the company, but without compromising our values. She was Mary's daughter. Tom rallied the workers. He reminded everyone what Miller Construction stood for. Quality, integrity, family. Lisa disappeared after the incident. I tried to find her, to thank her, but she was gone. She had saved my life. A guardian angel, sent by Mary. I realized that Mary had been protecting me all along, through Lisa, through Sarah, through the strength she had instilled in me. A year passed. It was my 61st birthday. I didn't have a big party, no fancy restaurant, no champagne. I spent the day with Sarah, Tom, and David, at the diner downtown. Hot coffee, good food, real people. We laughed. We talked about the future. A future that felt bright again. That night, I sat in my study, looking at the picture of Mary. We did it, Mary, I whispered. We saved the company. We saved the family. I thought about Mike. I hadn't visited him in prison. I couldn't. The wound was too deep. The betrayal too raw. Maybe someday I would be able to forgive him. But not yet. I looked out the window, the city lights sparkling below. I was old, but I wasn't done yet. I had built something strong, something that could withstand the storm. The legacy wasn't about the money or the power. It was about the foundation, the integrity, the loyalty, the love, the things that last. The waitress had warned me, and I had listened, not just to her words, but to the truth that had been hiding in plain sight. The truth that sometimes the greatest danger comes from the people closest to you, and the greatest strength comes from the love that protects you, even from beyond the grave. I turned off the light and went to bed. For the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. The foundation was secure. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your time matters.